Hello again, everyone. Welcome to the latest edition of the Opening Bell, and a bumper edition where the heavyweights are taking centre stage again. Indeed, with Fury AJ news, and Moses Itauma opponents sort of waiting in the wings as well. So it's a peak time for the heavyweights, one way or another. Matt Christie, how are you?
I'm good, mate. Did you see the football result of the weekend? Worthing won to go up as champions, National League awaits. It was terrific. I mean, it was a really, really, really lovely afternoon.
Did you go?
I did, and I had the foresight to book tickets a few weeks ago. They'd long sold out because I knew it was the last home game. I haven't really been going as much as I used to recently, but I thought I'll make an effort for that. Do you know how many were in there? 4,002. 4,002 people cheering on the mighty Worthing.
Oh, happy souls. to a man, woman, and child, happy souls. I thought you were talking about the West Ham comeback. I thought you were going back to your real.
And then I got back and I watched the West Ham comeback. And then I found out that Halesoe in Town won 5. Halesoe is where I'm originally from. Halesoe in Town won 5-0 to secure a playoff place. And I was texting my mate saying, "Is this day going to get any better?" And then, to be honest, all manner of hell broke out on the home front on the Saturday night. But prior to that, it was a glorious day.
Yeah, the universe can't allow absolutely everything to come together. And I also heard that the Midlands pub tug of war competition was won by the butchers in Rowley Regis.
No, is that a joke?
Yes.
It was a good one.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That's 2 weeks in a row I've delivered a joke. Crikey. We better move on. Let's press on. Right. Fury AJ signed. Is it signed? It's signed. They're all saying it's signed.
Yeah, I'm told it's been signed. But you know, we're a little battle weary with this saga, aren't we? There's been times where we've been told it's been signed before. We know that there were dates in the calendar before that the venue was sorted out. It was just the final few details we were waiting for, and then in steps Deontay Wilder saying, "Hang on a minute, Tyson, you owe me another fight," and that ended that. We had the whole debacle in lockdown when Tyson Fury got on social media and decided to thank Daniel Kinahan for sorting out 2 fights with Joshua. None of them have happened as yet. I think my biggest concern here is that Anthony Joshua is going to fight a fella called Christian Prenga on July the 25th out in Saudi Arabia, a person I'd never heard of. And I'd look and study the heavyweight division. I'd never heard of this dude before. But Joshua's got to negotiate that. What we don't know is how Joshua will look, how he will feel, how he will cope, what occurred to him, the horrors of what occurred to him at the end of last year when he lost 2 of his friends in a car accident in which Joshua was traveling. Joshua was in that car. So how he copes when he gets back in the ring, if he just feels that, do I want to go through with the Tyson Fury fight? Do I want all the build-up? Do I want to deal with that maniac for the next 6 months of my life? Who knows? Tyson Fury, I'm told now, is also considering a fight in the interim. May his big old legs land on a banana skin? Who knows? Who knows? So really, I think when you're dealing with 2 heavyweights that are very clearly past their best, they're talking about having fights in the interim before they fight each other, then it doesn't feel like a done deal to me. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. Even with all of those other instances, this does appear to be the most concrete, that they've got something in place from all those other points in history when we've been told they're going to fight. So I do believe that they both fully intend to fight at this moment in time, but can I be certain that they will? Absolutely not.
2 tweets from Turkey Al Sheikh that amused me. One was directed at London cabbies again. Some free tickets coming their way. Although this one may not quite need the ticket giveaway that Fury Makhmudov required to pad the attendance, to an extent, in truth. So that piqued my interest. That made me smile. And the other one was the old Peaky Blinders retro poster talk about self-promotion off Turkey centre stage alongside Frank Warren, Eddie Hearn. The two fighters were in there as well as Spencer Brown. Did you see that one?
I did see that one. I mean, you're not going to believe this. Like Turkey Al Sheikh has got my telephone number, right? Now, he stopped contacting me about 2 years ago, like for good reason, frankly. He just stopped contacting me after he was contacting me for a while. And he keeps sending me, I don't think he knows who he's sending them to. He keeps sending me like life help quotes. And he sent me that photo that you're talking about with them all Peaky Blinders. He sent me something this morning where somebody has wrote to a magazine. He sent me a shot of the magazine, and people are saying that they want His Excellency to be the next mayor of London, and he sent me that. I genuinely don't think he knows he's sending this stuff to me. I think he's got like some kind of media group on his phone, and he's just sending it out. I don't know, but the text stopped for 2 years. And now they've started again, and it's every day. He'll send me something like ridiculous. So yeah, I've seen all that.
The media bank, the media bank. So I think world weary is the right phrase. I think boxing fans are a little world weary. I think we'll all get into it if and when it happens, particularly in the weeks too. But I think all the promotion around it in the meantime is probably eyeballs to the skies, little shake of the head, and let's just let it roll without our interest to go alongside it. I suspect, but cometh the hour, cometh the time, we shall see. We shall see. Moses Itauma, of course, is looking on interestedly, maybe slightly across the food chain at the moment, but he's in position to be the last man standing when some of these aging fighters like Fury and Joshua and Usyk exit stage left and stage right. What's your understanding about what people in the Moses business are looking at and how they want to play their cards in the coming months?
Well, first of all, I wonder how people in the Moses business reacted to news yesterday that Anthony Joshua is going to fight on July the 25th, which is the date that was confirmed for Moses Itauma to fight in London. And you kind of know behind the scenes there's a little bit going on with Queensberry and Turkey Al Sheikh. And you kind of think, have they done this on purpose to kind of kibosh the interest in Moses Itauma? My understanding, though, is that whoever Moses Itauma fights, I think it's going to be a more intriguing contest than Joshua going in and knocking 7 bells out of this Prenga fella. They want to keep kind of their cards close to their chest. What they have is a 21-year-old heavyweight who is highly ranked by each of the sanctioning bodies. So he's number 1 with the WBA, he's number 1 with the WBO, he's number 5 with the IBF, and he's number 2 with the WBC. Now, it wouldn't surprise me if Queensberry, given that July the 25th is still a fair stretch away, so there's no immediate pressure to announce the opponent just yet. If they keep an eye on what's happening in the heavyweight fights that are happening this month, and the 2 biggest fights that are happening this month is Daniel Dubois challenging Fabio Wardley for the WBO title, and after that, the WBO will likely order that Itauma is next for the winner. There's also a WBC heavyweight fight taking place 2 weeks after that, on May the 23rd, where you got Alexander Usyk going in with Rico Kickboxer. And we already know, we've already been told that Frank Warren is going to lobby the WBC hard to ensure that they then order that the winner, that I think we can be certain is going to be Alexander Usyk, next fights Ajit Kabayel. The WBC ruled in December that they would allow Usyk to have 1 voluntary defence, and then he's had to fight Kabayel. That was at the convention in Bangkok, and the WBC did that. So if they, for whatever reason, don't fulfil their promise, there's going to be an awful lot of criticism aimed at the WBC when there's an awful lot of criticism already flying around. I suspect they will order Usyk versus Kabayel, and then it's really up to Alexander Usyk. Let's not forget, he also holds other belts. If he then doesn't want to fight Ajit Kabiel, that title would be declared vacant, and Kabiel would have to fight someone for the vacant crown. Number one contender in the heavyweight division with the WBC is currently Lawrence Okolie, who last week failed a test and is likely, I'm told, to lose his ranking for the time being with the WBC. Number two is Moses Itauma. So we could be in a situation where Moses Itauma versus Ajit Kabiel is ordered, and that may happen in July. But there's other things going on as well. We've got Dave Allen, Filip Hrgović. We know that Filip Hrgović is Moses Itauma's favoured next opponent. If they can turn that round super quickly somehow, if Filip Hrgović gets through Dave Allen with a minimum of fuss, he may well be offered that fight. But we wait and see. What they don't want to do at this stage is kind of say, okay, yes, we'll accept this mandatory position with the WBA or whoever, because as soon as you do that and you are clearly essentially negotiating or doing business with a sanctioning body, the other sanctioning bodies will remove them from the rankings. So that is what they want to do. So I think I believe they will wait and see what the best possible option is, and I think they will wait until after Alexander Usyk against Kickboxer before kind of making their decision. But it will need to be pretty quick at that point, because it will be about 2 months away from the date that they have got penciled in for Moses Itauma to return. But we wait and see. It's what I do know as well. What I do know is that they are super keen on getting a championship as soon as possible. That's what they want to do, and they want to position Itauma to fight Alexander Usyk as soon as possible, and they want to do that. They were offered an IBF eliminator against Frank Sanchez, which they turned down, not because there's any fear about that they could lose to Frank Sanchez, just that the IBF and in the way that things work, in that the sanctioning bodies have to take it in turns when there's a title holder who holds more than one belt, the sanctioning bodies have to take it in turns to order mandatories. The IBF are at the back of the queue, so they didn't want to be at the back of the queue when it came to the Alexander Usyk sweepstakes.
So a couple of questions out of that then, man. Obviously, they've got options. And it might depend on the other moving pieces on that chessboard, which of the options they decide to go for. The couple of things that sort of spring to mind, and they link to questions I think I asked you last week or the week before, and that is sort of related to Hrgović, if he is one of those chess pieces. I think you were more or less saying, I was trying to get you to say or answer whether or not, to an extent, Moses and Filip Hrgović were going to be pushed in different directions, or whether they would be prepared to push them together. Do you sense if there is a big title on the line, then that would be palatable for both parties?
It would, but you kind of have to look at where Hrgović is rated. I think he's kind of top 10, I think, with all of them, there or thereabouts. And I think that it was a fight that would interest Hrgović because he'd be paid an awful lot of money for it. But the more I look at it, I think the ideal scenario for Team Itauma is for Usyk versus Kabiel to be ordered. Usyk to say, no, thanks. I'm going to fight Tyson Fury for a third time, or whatever he wants to do. That title is then declared vacant, and Itauma fights Kabiel.
And the same question then, both parties, given they're the same network, because that big title is up for grabs, and they'd both be prepared to press play on that as well.
I think they'd be prepared to press play on that. I think they'd be less keen to press play on, at this instant, I think they'd be less keen to press play on a Fabio Wardley versus Moses Itauma. They obviously, again, I think they'd be less keen to do that. Because say if Wardley beats Dubois, in 12 months, Wardley keeps winning and Itauma keeps winning. In 12 months' time, you've got a ginormous British event, haven't you? And I'm not convinced they'd be super keen to press play on Dubois versus Moses Itauma. But I think they would be keener to press play on Dubois versus Itauma than Wardley versus Itauma.
Okay, good stuff. Another failed test, slightly different to Lawrence Okoli's the other week, but Mitchell Smith, positive test for THC. This has gone back to October when Mitchell Smith, pretty much short notice, came up and narrowly won his fight. It was on the 25th of October. UCAD producing that positive test. Just a quick line or two on this.
Yeah, I mean, it was a surprise to read it. I mean, the news was actually broken by Mitchell Smith's previous opponent on social media, who had lost over 10 rounds in a WBO European title fight. I presume that there was a WBO title on the line is why they were tested, but it was also on quite a big bill as well. It was on the undercard, actually, of Fabio Wardley versus Joseph Parker, that fight. We know that Parker fell foul of testing as well on that night. But yeah, it has since, I mean, there's been investigations behind the scenes. It's been essentially proven that this was not any attempt whatsoever to enhance a performance from Mitchell Smith, and they've essentially, because he broke the rules, however, they suspended him for 3 months, which I think a lot of people are going to be a little bit confused about, in terms of how consistent that is with other suspensions that we've seen. But that is going. But they've gone by the letter of the law as it stands, and they've suspended him for 3 months.
Okay. Sad news about Tony Cisse. He's been sort of battling motor neuron disease, hasn't he, for quite some time. A former boxer. He's more renowned latterly as a mentor and coach, a hero to everyone, I think, who's ever passed through the doors at Repton as well. Sad news at the age of 58 that Tony Cisse has passed.
Really, really sad. I think in London boxing circles, on the ex-boxers circuit, the amateur boxing as well, he's so highly thought of. I don't think I ever met him, to be honest. But I have met an awful lot of people that speak really highly of him. Saw a lot of videos going around last week when, we heard that he passed away. And yeah, by all accounts, we've lost another good one.
Tim Tszyu continues to have itchy feet. He seems to be searching for an answer, doesn't he, Tim Tszyu? Looks like he's shaking up his team again, and Jeff Fenech stepping into the breach. What do you make of all of that?
Yeah, it's a story that I followed fairly closely last week. Jeff Fenech actually phoned up Declan Warrington of Boxing Scene and told him all about it on one day last week. And then I watched something on Fox News the following day. It's strange. It's the second time in about 3 fights that Tim Tszyu has completely got rid of everybody on his training team. We know that Tim and Jeff Fenech have got a really good relationship. Tim Tszyu went to see Jeff Fenech before his last fight. Ultimately, what we're told is that it purely comes down to location. Tim Tszyu was having to go out to Miami for training camps. He wants to stay at home. He wants to be closer to his family. He wants to stay in Australia. And Jeff Fenech can provide that. Jeff Fenech saying things like, I can make Tim Tszyu, if I can get him mentally right, I can make Tim Tszyu Australia's greatest ever fighter, which is a heck of a statement at this stage of Tim Tszyu's career. And I think if you look at those interviews, and they are really, really interesting, it does appear that Tim Tszyu is battling some mental demons. And that is the biggest issue here, I think, is whether he can get over them. It's all but certain he's going to fight Errol Spence Jr. In the summer. Errol Spence Jr. hasn't fought since 2023, since he was beaten really comprehensively by Terence Crawford. So I think on the surface that does look like a winnable fight for Tim Tszyu. But as for Tim Tszyu and Jeff Fenech, where they go from here, I don't know. I don't know if it is going to be the solution to all of Tim Tszyu's problems.
Yeah, I mean, the mental hurdles are one thing. I think that statement is outlandish, given the skill set that Jeff Fenech will have to work with in Tim Tszyu. Let's be absolutely honest about it. That is an outlandish statement. And I think, in truth, an unrealistic one as well, on what we've seen so far. But we'd love to be proved wrong. We watch with interest. Just a quick line. I noticed I mentioned about the sort of live fallout and keep an eye on the situation stateside. There is a sort of ongoing potential purchase of Warner Brothers by Paramount for something like 81 billion or so. So I told you that There's links to government from Paramount. The Saudis are looking to invest in Hollywood and in the media, perhaps more so than sports these days as well. So that's going to have a knock-on effect for where they have been putting their cash previously. So that's all the news lines. Let's move on to the fights, because there are fantastic fights coming up this weekend. I mean, take your pick. We would love to be in Tokyo at the weekend, wouldn't we, Matt, for Inoue against Nakatani. What a fight this promises to be. Really excited and looking forward to it. We've got a couple of crackers this weekend.
Do you know who is there? I think he's flying out today, actually, or he flew out yesterday. Do you know who's there? Tom Ivers, who I mention a lot on the podcast. He's been a Trojan work-wise. And yeah, this is the reward that I've given him, is a trip to Japan. I'd love to have gone. I just can't at the moment with everything that's going on at home. But I would absolutely love to have been out there for this. It's surprising that we're not already hearing more about it. This is supposedly the fight that the hardcore wanted. If they could have picked one fight, and they all know so much about boxing, they'd have picked this one. But we're not hearing a great deal about it at the moment. We will, of course, as the fight draws closer. I think some of the luster was taken away slightly by Nakatani's most recent performance, where he was taking the full 12. He didn't look as impressive as we have seen him, and therefore the perception now is that he's got no chance against Inoue. I think you've got to pick Inoue, but I think it's going to be a memorable affair.
I think so. I think they're both made for each other in a way. You know, Inoue really fast with those. I think he's still got the edge in speed, Inoue, over Nakatani. But Nakatani throws that lovely sort of step back uppercut, doesn't he? And there is a chance he could walk Inoue onto that shot. We've seen Inoue down a couple of times in his last handful of fights as well. So, and he is an aging fighter at the age of 33. So it is possible. Rangy southpaw, throws a wicked uppercut. I don't think Nakatani was quite as bad as he looked last time. I just can't quite believe, Matt, that was the best version of Nakatani for whatever reason. If you take it on face value, then you won't be able to have a bar of him against Inoue this time around, because that was his first fight up in weight to this division, and he looked hittable, he looked sluggish, he looked beatable. He didn't look anywhere near the kind of sparkling, sharp-shooting menace that we'd seen at a lower weight. I can't quite believe that was the best version of himself, because if it is, he's in trouble.
You're exactly right with that, and I don't want to believe it. I don't want to believe it, because I want this fight to be what we've long dreamed it would be at the weekend. And who knows, really, whether that was an indicator that Nakatani shouldn't have moved any higher up in weight, whether it was an indicator that he's not the fighter he was anymore, just purely through the natural aging process, or was he carrying an injury? Were there things going on in his personal life? Was it a case of he was thinking about pulling out before that fight, but he decided to go through with it because he knew he had to secure the Inoue date? Very rarely does a training camp swim along beautifully and lead to the fight. There is generally things going on. And often when we look back on careers and we judge them as a whole. And within those careers, there's bad performances that stand out, but they're not always a trend. So no, like you, I'm leaning towards the notion that was a bad night at the office for Nakatani last time out, and he will be a lot better this time. And like you, I hope that to be the case, because if it wasn't just a bad night, if it wasn't an aberration, then he's going to have some problems, real problems with Inoue. But then you know, we talk about Inoue, and I think I've been saying this for a little while. All of a sudden, Inoue is not going to look like Inoue. All of a sudden, there's going to be a fight where he starts to look his age. And we have wondered, because he's been dropped a couple of times recently, if that is the earliest little signs that his reflexes are sliding just ever so slightly. You know, you think back to Manny Pacquiao, for example. Remember Manny Pacquiao when he was tearing through Oscar De La Hoya, Ricky Hatton, Miguel Cotto, beating up Antonio Margarito, and you think this guy is invincible, this man. And then he started to creak a little bit when he took on Shane Mosley. That was the night where he started to look a little bit older. And you do wonder if something like that is around the corner for Inoue.
I actually disagree, but because we've only seen glimpses of it, but Inoue can be a beautiful back foot boxer. I mean, he can be a beautiful, gliding, balletic back foot boxer. We've only seen little snippets of it. It would require a Marco Antonio Barrera type change of mindset and change of boxing philosophy. It would, in a sense, require him to stop being the seek and destroy puncher that has made his name and has made him what he is in the sport and has made him what he is to watch for us as fans. It would require a complete gear change for him. But I think in terms of abilities, he's got it in him to do a Barrera and become more of a boxer and therefore give his career a little more longevity than perhaps it otherwise would have. So I don't know if he can change his mindset like that, but I definitely think he's got the ability to do it, Matt, if they chose to at whatever stage. If he noticed that he was just half a step slower, if he noticed that he was maybe just getting clipped a little easier, I think he could become a bit of a defensive back foot genius in Inoue by just having made his career and his reputation on something else. I'm not quite sure I can see that unfolding. And certainly in a fight like this, I don't necessarily think those are the tools he's going to employ this time around.
No, but you don't know, do you? You don't know how he's feeling in the gym, if they've made that decision. You don't know. You just don't know. Ordinarily, it does take kind of quite a sobering experience in the ring for a fighter to kind of change their style to that degree. And only a handful have done it successfully. Only a handful can do it successfully. But you are right. You are exactly right with what you say about Inoue's boxing skills and that he has got that versatility should he choose to. And maybe he's got all the respect in the world for Nakatani. No doubt he has. I mean, this guy Inoue, there's a reason why he's just so astonishingly good. He's training every single day, whether he's got a fight in the horizon, on the horizon or not. He takes this sport so seriously. And if he feels that to beat Nakatani, he needs to adopt that back foot boxing that you're describing there, who knows? Who knows? He's most certainly got it in his locker. But back to my point, there is going to come a point where he realizes that he's not the Superman that he used to be. I think I've said that now for the last 3 or 4 Inoue fights, and he's looked pretty good in all of them. So if I keep saying it, it's going to happen, and I'm going to look like a genius. And we'll clip that. We'll clip that up and just get it on there. Get it on socials.
on the socials. How do you think this one plays out? Because I can see so many different possibilities. And man, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw multiple knockdowns and fireworks all over the gaff. I mean, I genuinely wouldn't be surprised by that. Wouldn't be surprised if we see a really thoughtful fight and Inoue's just always one step ahead and maybe starts to wear down Nakatani. Maybe Nakatani clips and hurts Inoue early with that left hand. Changes the complexion of the fight and Inoue has to go chasing or he goes on the back foot. I mean, I just don't know. I can't quite visualize how this one plays out in terms of all of the options, Matt.
I'm hoping for a 4-round barn burner, rip roarer of a slugfest is what I'm hoping for. I suspect out of all of those options that you just gave, it will be Inoue one step ahead for the majority of the contest.
On point?
Point to a late stoppage.
I think Inoue stops him. I just can't see Nakatani going through that fight not getting clocked and clipped. I just can't see it. He's too long and loose, tall. I just can't see it. Inoue has to clock him at some stage. I'd say second half he gets to him. But that's Inoue Nakatani on the same bill. Takuma Inoue against Kazuto Ioka as well. First defense of the bantamweight title that used to be Nakatani. So that's on the undercard as well. And then, as if one great fight over the weekend wasn't enough, we've got another one as well at the T-Mobile. That's over on Amazon. That's Gilberto Ramirez defending his cruiserweight title against David Benavidez, who's stepping up from light heavyweight. This would be the biggest test for Benavidez, wouldn't it? And he's in so many ways in his career to date.
This is a really intriguing fight. I like this one a lot. I really do. Yeah, I mean, overnight, David Benavidez has come out and he said he feels. Oh God, I'm about to just regurgitate what every boxer says, but he says he's never felt this strong as he feels at cruiserweight. So his line at the moment is that cruiserweight is where he should always have been. This is him at his best. Whether that proves to be the case when he's in the thick of combat with somebody who's cultured and as good as Ramirez, we don't know. A lot of people are red hot on Benavidez. I love watching him. I'm still not super convinced that he's kind of pound for pound number one, kind of that he could go on and do that. I haven't seen anything like that. I don't believe he's had the opponents to showcase that. But I think if he does a job on Ramirez at the weekend, then you have to start to believe the hype that is around David Benavidez.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by this. I'm really looking forward to it as well. I think it's a crackerjack of a fight. And yeah, I've been the same with my view on Benavidez pretty much throughout. And that is that, yeah, I still yet to be convinced by the overall package. But you've got to say, he is great to watch. He's an intimidating presence in the ring, isn't he? Now, that has been at light heavyweight. He's going up a chunk against a guy who, of course, previously was a super middle and a light heavy, but a big framed Ramirez. Although you would say, from what we've seen so far of Ramirez, Matt, as sort of broad-shouldered and tall as he is, he's been quite fleshy at 200 pounds, hasn't he? And he's not looked like a natural big cruiserweight, has he? So far. So maybe actually it's not quite the weight physical jump up that you might have thought for Benavidez.
No, and I think that's a big reason why Team Benavidez was so keen on the fight. You know, they're not calling out Jay Opetaia, are they, for example? So, yeah, and I think Benavidez isn't going to look chiseled at the week. I'd be astonished. I mean, he never looks chiseled anyway, does he? So I think we can expect both of them to look a little bit like they should be in the division below. But just imagine Benavidez goes out, stops Ramirez in the way he's been stopping people in the lower weight classes. All of a sudden, Benavidez versus Jay Opetaia is a fight that I'd be desperate to see.
Yeah, I don't think he will. That, while I couldn't quite and can't quite visualize Nakatani against Inoue, this one I can visualize the pattern of it. Because Ramirez, to be at his best, I mean, he can box and jab, but really to be at his best, he's a fighter who likes to fight in and around the pocket. Benavidez likes to get on the front foot, long jab, and try and slam you with the right hand. So I can see exactly how this plays out. And the key to this fight is when Benavidez presses and closes the gap, then the artistry of Ramirez, that's when he goes to work. And can he pick his pocket in those little slots? If he can, then this is where the fight is going to be won and lost. And Ramirez can give Benavidez a lot of trouble in those little exchanges. If he's just a bit cuter, a bit too clever, if he's just a bit more measured with the space when Benavidez gets inside or close to inside, then I think Ramirez can do a little bit of a job in spells on Benavidez. So I'm intrigued. I really can't wait to see if he can do that, Ramirez, because he's a very, very clever boxer. He's very articulate in those little inside exchanges. We saw it against a big, sort of heavy Chris Billum-Smith, didn't and he was repeatedly able to punish Billam Smith in those little areas inside distance. So Benavidez can keep him at range and just keep peppering away, then he'll probably win this lopsided decision. But if he makes mistakes on the edge inside, Ramirez will make him pay. I'm really quite looking forward to seeing if he can do that.
And I think you look at Ramirez and you see him against certain opponents and he looks so good. But then you think back to 2022 and people are giving him half a chance against Dimitri Bivol and he barely won a round. And that really was his previous biggest fight, I think. And that was the last time that you could say that he was kind of stepping up to put himself in the pound for pound conversation. And he fell a long way short on that night. So, yeah, it's difficult for me to pick Ramirez to win this. I think he's more used to being a cruiserweight. So even though he doesn't necessarily look like one, he knows how to negotiate a 12-round cruiserweight fight, whereas Benavidez hasn't done that yet. He hasn't negotiated 12 rounds. He might feel really strong, but he might also feel absolutely shattered after 6 rounds of carrying the extra weight around. So there are certain questions that will need to be answered on fight night. But yes, I'd be expecting Benavidez to win this one.
I think Benavidez points is the percentage call, but I just remind you about Ramirez, how well he did. It looked like he was busting a gut and he was in 5th gear for periods against Dorticos and Chris Billam Smith, but he managed the pressure and the intensity of those attacks against both Dorticos and Chris Billam Smith. You know, one a big cruiser, the other one a heavy puncher and an experienced cruiser. And he dealt with all of that pressure as well as you could do. And it was quite intense pressure. So what Benavidez brings, he to an extent, he's seen before. It's really fascinating, this. I think I might end up having a few quid on Ramirez, expecting Benavidez to probably win on points.
Yeah, I'll go with that. I agree with you. I was reading something. I think I sent it to you, didn't I? I read something about how it can boost the opening bell's profile and whatever. And it says it's really good if the hosts disagree. If you get the hosts arguing, that'd be good. You disagree. Unfortunately, Alex, I'm not just going to disagree with you for the sake of that. I do completely agree that Benavidez will win, and the smartest bet is Benavidez on points.
Not just those two cracking fights. We've got another one closer to home in Wolverhampton. Conor Walker against Sam Eggington. I mean, I said Inoue and Nakatani are made for each other. Well, Walker and Eggington are. And maybe the timing favours Conor Walker. Sort of recency, form. He's on a run. He's younger. But then Sam Eggington will just throw in a performance, won't he? I mean, he did it again against Lee Cutler. He did it against a couple of years ago when you and I were down at Southampton, Matt, against Joe Pigford. That was another fight he wasn't supposed to win. So you can never quite know or rule out Sam Eggington, even although the bases are loaded a bit for Conor Walker. Although, again, you wonder how many times is Conor Walker going to look like he's going to lose and then find a way to win?
Yeah, I know. Conor Walker's on a heck of a run. You only have to go to his most recent performance when he, shocked a lot of people when he beat McCormack. I just then while you were talking, I Googled Sam Eggington's age. I thought this dude has got to be mid-30s at least. He's 32.
Yeah.
He's 32. You don't write him off. I've written him off many times before. I've been proven wrong with Sam Eggington. You simply have to wonder when that well is going to run dry, though, with all of the hellacious fights that he's been in. And I know he finds that kind of slightly offensive when people keep mentioning that, but it's true. We've seen them with our own eyes. He has taken a lot of punishment over the years, and at some point he will not be able to take any more. I will pick Conor Walker to win this fight. But you know what? For pure entertainment, he might end up being the fight of the weekend. It could well be the fight of the weekend, and I say that while being acutely aware of the previous two fights we've just previewed, which are terrific, brilliant, wonderful matchups. But Eggington Walker, for the potential for it just to be one of those edge of your seat dust-ups, one of those fights that occur in a British ring where you're kind of proud of British boxing, it might well be one of those.
What's the key to victory for both men? What's the best option, best way for Sam Eggington to win, for example?
Eggington has shown that he can box. Did he do it against fairly recently, where he didn't kind of resisted going into the trenches and he boxed as opposed to fought. I think that. I don't think even Eggington should be getting into a firefight with Conor Walker. I think that he will have to box to the best of his ability, which he can do, and we've seen him do that. And I think that will be what is being drilled into him right now.
Yeah. Lee Cutler he beat not so long ago, didn't he? Although it ended in cuts. But he has got it in him. And you're right. Going to war, will they be too proud, or will Eggington try and surprise a few people and box? We know that Conor Walker can be outboxed, outscored, in fact, before pulling it out of the bag. He did it against McCormack. He did it notably against Harry Scarf when it looked like he was miles behind. So, yeah, that is a cracker. On a weekend of tremendous boxing, it's so good, isn't it? Thanks again to the lovely Patreons and to our sponsors, NAS Medical. They're the leading independent experts in ringside medical care. They provide global medical coverage for professional and amateur boxing events, ringside medicine training, and also basic life support accredited courses. Boxer safety is their priority, and you can find Neil and the team at nasmedical.co.uk. The truth is, without NAS and the lovely patrons, we wouldn't be here next week. Simple as that. Simple as that. Never mind next week. Time to talk about this week. This week, we take you back to San Juan, Puerto Rico. Wilfredo Gomez on a tear is where we go back to. This is a fight that Howard Cosell keeps telling us as it goes on and on and on should never have taken place. And you can sort of see why. Eddie Ndukwu, the unbeaten Nigerian, is in against, multiple defense champion Wilfredo Gomez, who was looking to move up in weight, Matt, wasn't he? Up to featherweight to get a crack at Salvador Sanchez, who was about to fight, I think, Danny Red Lopez again down the tail end of his career. Before the fight, though, there's a sort of bit of a story, isn't there, regarding weight making or not weight making?
I was trying to dig out a boxing news or something from the time just to get more concrete information on this. Yeah, I mean this is when Gomez was the WBC super bantamweight champion, and he was going up to featherweight, and this was kind of being listed as a WBC eliminator. And Gomez apparently doesn't make the featherweight limit. He's overweight for it, but he's saying that he's not. So there's a bit of confusion beforehand with Gomez, but as Howard Cosell calls this from the start, that it's a mismatch, and he doesn't sugarcoat it at any point. A pitiful match, he says. It's a national embarrassment. He apologises to the viewers that they had to witness it, which you wouldn't get now. And I did make a note early on, and again, this is where we show our age and what have you. Howard Cosell isn't my favourite commentator in history. He's not, but he certainly brings to mind a certain era in the sport of boxing that I have great affection for. But it's just the lack of the lack of noise is nice. There's not just this constant barrage of people shouting at you, which you seem to get now. It's just Howard Cosell, just grumpy Howard talking us through the fight. You can hear the ringsiders, you can hear the noise, you get more of a sense of the atmosphere than you do with current broadcasts. Now, I'm not saying this broadcast is better than the broadcast that we get now. It patently isn't. I mean, the coverage disappears midway through the second round for a start off, where Howard Cosell's having to apologise about the lack of vision, and we've just got this big ABC picture on screen while we can hear the fight going on in the background. But what he was right. I'd never seen this fight before. It's so one-sided, showcases every little bit of Wilfredo Gomez's toolbox because he's allowed to. There's nothing stopping him from doing that. See him do an alley shuffle midway through it. I don't know how many times he drops in Duquo, all things considered. We just about get the footage back just as he applies a 3-punch combination to score the fight's first knockdown. But Gomez, at his pristine best against a wildly overmatched opponent who was 14-0 going in, but quite how he was put forward for a WBC eliminator, I do not know. And Gomez, 28-0-1 going into this fight, he had drawn his debut, and then he would go on to score 32 consecutive knockouts after drawing his debut. And this was the 29th of those 32. Did exactly what he had to.
Indeed. Felt a bit sorry for Ndukwu, who was a Commonwealth champion coming into this one, but yeah, never been at this kind of level. And unfortunately, it showed pretty much every time he was hurt or caught. He was off balance so often, wasn't he, Ndukwu? And you could see the power of Gomez getting through almost repeatedly, Matt, with all sorts of punches, a kind of a long jab, left hook, any punch he wanted. He was hurting and wobbling and offsetting Ndukwu.
Oh, he was. I mean, the last knockdown, it looks like he's going to break Ndukwu in half. He kind of ends up on the ropes. Reminds me a bit of that famous image of Henry Cooper and Joe Erskine, when Joe Erskine is like a fly in a spider's web. He's kind of all stretched out after taking a shot from Henry Cooper. And it's a similar imagery here. And Howard, at that point, he goes down and Gomez is just instinctively trying to help him to his feet. I think at that point, he's starting to feel a bit sorry for his opponent. And Howard Cosell says, I've seen Gomez land much harder punches than that. But they're still knocking this fella down. I mean, we watch all manner of weird and wonderful fights for this section. And just for the ludicrousness of everything on display, it's worth a watch.
Yeah. And it's a sort of big night over there, isn't it? Because Alexis Arguello's in action as well. In terms of the actual action, it's quite an underwhelming night because you have Gomez in against a well overmatched Eddie Ndukwu, and you have Arguello against Rolando Navarrete, and that one sort of ends up quite underwhelming as well, doesn't it, Matt? Whether it's the heat or it's just Arguello, but Navarrete ends up sort of sitting on his stool after four rounds or so.
Yeah. Have we done that? I feel like we've done that. Have we done that one before?
I don't know. We've done it. We've done a Navarrete fight. And we've done a couple of Arguello fights, but it's quite an underwhelming fight, that one. That's top of the bill, and you've got Gomez against Ndukwu, sort of the undercard. But he probably was a more natural super bantam, wasn't he, Gomez? Because he defended the title 10 times before this, and he would go back to super bantam after a little foray up to feather.
Yes, he would. And so after this fight, he goes back down to super bantamweight. He will fight Salvador Sanchez up at featherweight. He'll lose in 8 rounds, which would be the first blot on his record since his debut. And he would later welcome Azuma Nelson in 1984. He'd welcome Azuma Nelson into the big time, wouldn't he? And gave a good account of himself. That's one we should do. Gomez gives a decent account of himself against Azuma Nelson, leading on the cards, and then gets stopped in the 11th round. But Gomez, one of the greatest Puerto Ricans, if not the greatest Puerto Rican fighter of all time. And you watch him in this fight against Ndukwu, and you can see he's special. You can see he's vicious. You recognise the various nuances that you only see with elite fighters, and Gomez was exactly that.
He looks so 80s, doesn't he, Matt? The head and the tash.
Yeah, he does.
And the Apollo, well, the Puerto Rican shorts, but the sort of almost Apollo Creed-like shorts as well. He looks the part. But mind you, to be fair, he looked like he could just go out dancing, couldn't he?
Yes, yeah, exactly that. And I think later in life, he spent quite a bit of time kind of enjoying himself a bit too much because he encountered some real problems in retirement. Wilfredo Gomez.
What a time. Gomez, Salvador Sanchez. He'd beaten Carlos Zarate before. You got Arguello in there as well, just about to move up to lightweight. What a time. What a time it was. But Nduku overmatched. It can do no good in perfect candor for boxing, says Howard Cosell. A pitiful match, a public and national embarrassment. It shouldn't have been held in the first place. All of those statements attributed to this fight from Howard Cosell. And we chose it for this week because it's funky. And it's a glimpse at Wilfredo Gomez at the age of 23, probably just about at his peak, Matt.
Yeah, he was. I think he was right in the thick of his peak at the moment, at this particular point in time. And he would fight on for a few more years. He'd then make an ill-advised comeback several years after that. And yeah, as I say, that was when kind of the demons started to play havoc in his mind. And yeah, it's quite a sorry tale, really, with what Gomez was forced to endure. But he came out the other side. I'm also pleased to say he did come out the other side of that. But 23 years old, oof, he must have been loving life around this time.
Well, this week I spoke to another young boxer who's in his 20s, just making his way in the game, Reece Lynch. We caught up with Reece as a bonus pod and as part of our prospect series as well. So go and listen to that if you can. Interesting to get his take. We're trying to sort of use those conversations as a glimpse into and behind the boxing game as a business as much as a sport through the eyes of a young prospect. And it's quite interesting to speak to Reece this week, Matt, talking about sort of dealing with a cut, money, how you go about that. Fight night kit. He went on after the main event. So, you know, him and his fans had to kind of wait around, his friends and family as well. So dealing with all of the stuff that goes along with being a professional fighter in this wacky business.
I haven't listened to this one, I'll be honest. I will listen to it. You've reminded me. I'll listen to it on my walk today. But the others have been great. And if Reece continues to be so generous with his time as his journey continues, it's only going to get more interesting. So, you know, me personally, I know you get to speak to Reece. I haven't been involved in any of the interviews. If Reece is listening to this particular podcast, I'd just like to thank him personally for being so generous with his time, because not everyone is or can be, but it's been a fascinating glimpse into a fighter at the start of their career. And as things start to get more and more interesting, as I say, the podcast will go along with it.
Yeah, I think it's only going to get better, but he's been great. He's been very, very direct, honest, open to all conversations. We've dealt with, you know, everything from how much he's getting paid to thoughts on this, that, or the next thing. So he's been tremendous, and it's only going to get better. So stick with us. If you haven't listened to that, go and check out the previous ones. I think that's the 4th or 5th that we've had with him. So yeah, it's going to be a really interesting journey, and thanks to Reece for his time. That's available to all of you, of course. Thanks to the Patreons as well, supporting the podcast. We couldn't do without you. All of that for less than $5 a month on patreon.com or on the Patreon app, or courtesy of Apple Plus as well. Thanks to everyone who's subscribing via Apple Plus as well. And we will speak to you all again next week. Bye for now.